Hello folks, it's Spiffy Guy. Thanks for clicking on the video. In front of me is a 4x8 raised planter. It uses corrugated steel roof panels, cedar lumber, some galvanized electrical conduit, and some roof flashing. It's really simple to build, and that's what we're going to discuss in this video. So what I'll do is I'll run through the build process and show you exactly how I do it, and then I'll leave all my comments and additional chatty discussions for the end of the video. So before we get started, I just want to point out that this is not my design. I found this online. There's a website called Growfully, and it was a blog post, and I like their plans. So I'll put the link down in the description to that, and you can check them out. Additionally, we're going to be working with power tools and sheet metal, so you want to have safety in mind when you're doing that. Make sure you're not cutting off any digits. That said, let's get building. Our material list is going to be 2 4x4s at 8 feet long, 3 2x6 at 10 feet long, 3 half-inch galvanized conduit at 10 feet, 3 roofing panels, which are 8 feet long. We're going to need some screws, 3-inch decking screws, and 1.5-inch self-tapping. Additionally, we'll need a 10-foot section of roof drip edge flashing, which is used on the corners. The first cut will be the 4x4s. We want 6 pieces at 26 inches. This measurement may slightly change depending upon the width of your panels. I'll mention that later. Cut 2 of the 2x6s to 99 3/4. Put a miter on it. This will be our top rail. Cut the remaining 2x6 into 2 51 3/4-inch sections with miter edges as well. Next, we'll cut the electrical conduit into 40-inch sections. Then we will cut one of the roofing panels in half to make 2 48-inch sections. And finally, we'll cut the roof flashing into 4 26-inch sections to cover our corners. On assembly, the first thing we'll do is lay out one 8-foot panel and attach the 2 4x4 posts. Pay attention to line up one edge nice and flush. This will be our top. Also, you can see that my panels were 26.5 inches. So measure your panel width before you cut your 4x4s. Do the same thing with a second 8-foot panel, and then attach the 4-foot panel to the side. Pay close attention to make sure your corners are nice and flush so we can cover them with the roof flashing later. Attach the second 4-foot piece and you should have a nice frame. Move the frame into position. We're about to permanently put it into place, so put down any hardware cloth or cardboard that you want prior to the next step. Pound the galvanized conduit in the center of each side, making sure that the frame doesn't move. Once you have it in place, use the remaining conduit on the 8-foot sides. This will help with bowing. Attach the top rails, screwing 3-inch deck screws into the 4x4 posts. Use 1.5-inch self-tapping screws to attach the corner piece to the corrugation. Keep in mind that this is not structural, so if you screw too deep, you'll deform the corners. This completes the build. We've completed the build, and so let's get into some of the details about it. In general, I picked this plan because it seemed to be that it used the least amount of wood. Wood is at a premium right now, especially cedar. And personally, I don't like to use pressure treated where it's going to be inside a raised bed with soil contact. I kind of went back and forth on possibly creating a design that used an external pressure treated frame. Essentially, then there would be no boards on the inside. And eventually I just decided to use this and go with that. That said, there is probably some things that you could do to reduce the cost. These 2x6s that are up here on top are really expensive. And that was probably one of the most expensive parts of the project because you need 3 of them. And so if you were to replace this with either 2x4s, or maybe you use pressure treated up at the top, or even non-treated and plan to replace it every 3 to 5 years. You get away with that. But these boards were really expensive. But I do like the fact that you have this stability up on top. You have some place you could sit. You could use this for a flat panel and turn this into a cold frame in the early spring and fall. A couple things that I wish I would have done a little bit better. My miter joints aren't that great. That's fine, no biggie. One of the things I should have done is I should have leveled it before I put in the posts on the side, which help prevent bowing. It's not a big deal. I can level this off and then come back and raise the conduit posts a little bit. The conduit posts on the side were important in my opinion because I've seen a lot of these where people didn't have any wood up on top or anything like that, and they did get bowing, especially if they made them a little longer. So I think it's important that if you're going to try to construct a plan of your own using these corrugated sheets, that you make sure the corrugating goes horizontally, because that's the way it's going to be the strongest, and then you put something in place to help with bowing, because it will bow. The beauty behind this though is that you can sort of resize this as you needed. So if you only wanted a 4x4, you could put in a 4x4 system. You could double this up and make it even longer as well. That's entirely up to you. There's a lot of options with this corrugated metal. So one final thing I'll do after I fill this with dirt is I'm going to come through and I'm going to put in some PVC sections, and I'll put them here in the middle, and then I'll get them attached on the side. And what this will allow me to do is it'll allow me to put rebar in, for one. So I'd be able to put in rebar into the dirt and then be able to attach a PVC hoop, and that will allow me to cover this whole thing with plastic and basically turn it into a hoop house. But I could also use the hoops here on the side and in the center for netting off sections that if I was worried about cabbage moth or birds coming in and eating the stuff, you'd be able to actually kind of net off some stuff as well. So I think that'll help. But my intention is to fill this with a hugelkultur style. I've got a lot of old rotten woods and branches and things like that. So, and that will help me to raise up the platform on the bottom, if you will. And so I have to use less soil mix. So, but that is going to be for another video. So if you've made it this far in the video, I certainly appreciate you watching this. And we've got more coming up with this this raised bed and the rest of the garden as well. So be sure to do all the YouTube stuff and subscribe up so you can see future videos and get planning on your own.